Welcome, everybody, to the 5th episode of the Triple Play Podcast. I'm Kevin Peters with my co-host, as always, Adam Kelley. And this week, we are very excited to welcome in Adam's brother, Joshua, who we're very excited to have with us. Josh, thanks for being on with us.
Hey, it's great.
I can tell you sound very excited to be with us.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Well, Josh, are you junior, right? Junior? Josh is a junior at Oklahoma City University, so he sings real pretty, and he can make the noises with his mouth. He does the beatbox. That's what Josh is up to. Josh, you just got cast in your first leading role, right, in the spring? Yeah. So what show is that?
Yeah.
What's it about, and how's that looking?
Yeah, well, it's an Italian opera called L'Amico Fritz, and I'll be playing the lead role of Fritz. So we're doing it in English, and it's a bit of a newer Italian opera.
Okay.
But, yeah, it'll be.
You know, I remember talking with your dad about like these Italian operas when they get translated into English. Are there any like weird lines where the translation doesn't quite work to make it fit in with the music?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of awkward places. We're going to have to make some changes to some of the words to make it sound a little bit more modern. But, yeah.
Okay, so that was opera. That was us talking opera. We'll head right into it. We're going to change up the order. We usually start with sports, but Josh has, we can call it limited knowledge of the sporting world. We're gonna start with some of his stronger suits. We'll hop right into the movie portion. So all three of us have seen Into the Spider-Verse, correct? Okay, so
that's correct.
Just like your initial, we'll start with Josh because he's the guest. So Josh, kind of give us your initial thoughts on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, sure. Well, Adam and I saw it together. What was that? Probably a week ago. And we both really liked it. It's definitely one of my favorite animated movies that I've seen recently. I thought it was very, very good. The music was fantastic. It was very funny. The action was great. The animation was great. Yeah, I mean, overall, I'd probably give it a 8 or 8.5 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Adam, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I also very much liked it. It was visually stunning. I think the animation style was absolutely just gorgeous and so stylized, and it really felt like you were watching a comic book on the big screen, and I loved that effect. It was very funny. I really much appreciated the humor. Like Josh was saying, it had a great soundtrack. The voice acting was phenomenal. It was just a very pleasant overall experience. I loved it. One of the best movies of 2018.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I know. So I remember I was talking with you, Adam, about it after I saw it because I think you texted me that I needed to go see it, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go see it tonight." And that was kind of a spur of the moment thing. I was like, "Oh, Adam says go see it, so I'm gonna go see this like now." And I absolutely adore this movie. The art style, Adam, like you said, is something that I immediately fell in love with. Like you can see at certain points when Miles is like using like the flashlight on his phone, like the part that's being lit up, you can see like those little black dots like those old school comic books would have, and just like kind of like there were like little things like an exclamation, like someone would gasp or something, you would see like a little puff of air or something come out of their mouth. And just like the attention to detail in that aspect I thought was just wonderfully done. And again, the humor in it was really funny. I noticed there was like a little Easter egg, I think, to the Spider-Man game that came out when they went down into Peter Parker's little spider lair, his web, whatever we want to call his hideout. You could see the Spider-Man suit, the one with like the white knuckles and whatnot. you
Yeah,
could
I
see
remember
that in the
reading about that.
background of all the suits that he had lined up. So I noticed that, and I thought that was pretty neat. And like also, I think Adam, you were the one that talked about the voice acting was awesome. I thought Jake Johnson did a fantastic job as the older Peter Parker, and then John Mulaney as Spider Ham is the greatest thing. It's like I didn't know I needed that, but I'm so happy that it happened. Um, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely perfect.
I agree, 100%. There was just not a whole lot about that movie that I disliked. I think the one thing I didn't really like about it was that Mahershala Ali's character was kind of obvious, I guess, if that makes sense. Like there was no like it wasn't a surprise reveal or anything.
If you're a hardcore Marvel fan, then you would have recognized his name, Aaron Davis, anyway. So.
And at first, like the first look at his character, whose name is escaping me right now, Prowler. Okay. Well, he kind of almost looked like a Deadpool ripoff, just like with the initial because like you originally only like see the silhouette in his eyes, and the eyes look just like it looked like a cyborg Deadpool to me, and so I was kind of like with his character, but I mean beyond that, I thought just the whole thing was marvelous. Although I would say the one thing I am a little confused about is how Kingpin gets anywhere, because he is an absolute unit. So how he gets in and out of cars or in and out of his house, no idea. But yeah,
that's a big boy.
So any more thoughts, guys, on Into the Spider-Verse?
No, I mean I think we need to have the discussion, because it is a worthy discussion. Is Into the Spider-Verse the best Marvel movie?
Well, is it? I mean, it's in association with Marvel, but is it? Did it come out of Marvel Studios?
I'm using Marvel loosely here, so not necessarily MCU, just Marvel as like intellectual.
Okay. So like, if you wanted to, you could like include Venom and all that too. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And X-Men and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Okay,
movies.
Fair enough. Well, for me personally, I would say that it's not the best Marvel movie. I would say it's the second best Marvel movie, because the first Infinity War, I guess that's the only one. I thought the Endgame was going to be Infinity War 2, but Infinity War, Avengers Infinity War is my favorite movie. So I would go with Into the Spider-Verse as my second favorite Marvel movie, and arguably I would say probably the best animated movie I've seen, just in general, not even like as a Marvel entity, but just the best animated movie that I've seen. It is.
That's quite a bar.
I think I would agree with the whole being the best animated movie that I've seen, but I would put it a little bit farther down the list in terms of Marvel as a whole. Adam and I were arguing the other day because he was saying that he thought Into the Spider-Verse was better than Black Panther, which I could see the argument, but I think as a whole, Black Panther I would put higher than Into the Spider-Verse, as well as Spider-Man Homecoming and Thor Ragnarok, and of course Infinity War. But it's definitely top 5.
That's interesting. So, I mean, I can see the case for Black Panther, I suppose. I mean, Black Panther's cultural impact can't be doubted, and as far as like impact on society, Black Panther is like leaps and bounds the most like important Marvel film, I guess I would say. But I mean, as an actual film, I mean, it's okay. I mean, Michael B. Jordan is obviously magnificent as Killmonger, and I love oh my goodness, who plays Chadwick Boseman. I love everything Chadwick Boseman does, but I mean, those two I thought did really well. But I mean, as a whole movie, it was kind of straightforward, and there wasn't anything super spectacular about it. I mean, I guess the visuals of Wakanda kind of itself were neat, but beyond that, there wasn't a whole lot to it.
it's your standard run
Right.
of the mill
Yeah.
Marvel movie, right? I mean, Marvel makes good movies, and I think Black Panther is just sort of like the template of what you would expect from a Marvel movie. And there's nothing bad about
Yeah.
that. I really like Black Panther, but again, I think it had some third act
Mm-hmm.
problems. A lot of the last action scene, I think, lasted too long for my taste.
Yeah. And
But of course, that does not take away from it as a movie as a whole. But yeah, I just don't think that it stacks up to movies like Infinity War and
yeah.
Spider Verse. Um, and
For me, I don't think you can undermine Black Panther's music as a whole, because I think Black Panther definitely has the best music of, I would argue, the 21st century. Like, with the score on top of its soundtrack, everything was just top of the notch. It was fantastic music all around. Um, the Wakanda theme is probably my favorite uh, scored piece of music out there right now. On top of the album, which I still listen to frequently, because I love Kendrick Lamar,
Mm-hmm.
I love The Weeknd, and the whole album is just fantastic. And I think that's why it's heavily influencing my opinion of it, just because of how beautiful it was, the great acting, on top of, what I argue to be the best soundtracked movie of our generation.
here's where I have a difference of opinion with you, and I would actually argue that Into the Spider Verse has better music than Black Panther, and here's why. It's not necessarily that Into the Spider Verse's soundtrack stands better on its own, because I don't know if it does. I think obviously Black Panther you can just listen to in your car anytime you want and enjoy it. But I really felt like Into the Spider Verse was driven by its soundtrack and by its score. All of the action pieces, the characters were almost moving in time to the score and to the soundtrack, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's what made it really connect with me as a viewer. Um, is because it really felt like the music was a part of the story, as opposed to Black Panther, where the music was just sort of a nice addition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that Into the Spider Verse, also has an incredible soundtrack. Um, I would put it up there with Black Panther for having two of the best soundtracks of our time. But I think the score is where Black Panther has Into the Spider Verse beat, because of how great it was done, and the emotions that the score and Black Panther gives you. It's so epic in every way, and it just heavily influences the movie through the entire thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kevin?
So as far as the music goes, Black Panther kind of not its score, but its soundtrack. Just because when you have a soundtrack that is featuring Kendrick Lamar, like it's going to be really good. But and so I was really excited for the Black Panther soundtrack, but when I walked out of the theater for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I was looking for the soundtrack to Into the Spider-Verse as well, because the music, I think, like Adam said, just played so well with what you were seeing that it just like it made thematical sense for the music where it was and how it was working with what was being played on screen. That its overall effect on the movie, I think, Into the Spider Verse was better, right? So I think Adam, you made that same point that its effect was like the mute. Like, let me try again. On a purely like pop it into your car and listen, Kendrick Lamar is going to win that battle 9 times out of 10 against anyone. But as far as the importance to the actual movie, you don't really need Kendrick and his music to get to build the emotion of Black Panther, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So
I will say that the Into the Spider-Verse soundtrack was, barely promoted compared to Black Panther. Everybody was so excited. Everybody was listening to the soundtrack of Black Panther before the movie even came out. And the soundtrack for Into the Spider-Verse, we really had no idea what we were getting into when we went into the movie. And then we got, all these fantastic Lil Wayne and a bunch of others that I don't think people were really expecting. So it was kind of a nice surprise how good the music was for the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, I want to say one more thing on the music, and then we can move on.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a really weird comparison, but for me, the difference between something like the Black Panther soundtrack and Into the Spider-Verse soundtrack is like the difference between like the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack and the score from Interstellar, right? Two space movies, but like you can just listen to the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack anytime you want and just have a blast, and it's fun to listen to. And that's what the Black Panther soundtrack is to me. Compare that to Interstellar, which was, I don't think I would ever just be sitting in my car listening to Hans Zimmer's score from Interstellar. But when you're there in the theater, watching the action happening, watching these characters fly through space with the organ swells really playing on your emotions, I think that has such an effect on the viewer. And I think Into the Spider-Verse had a similar effect with the way it handled its music.
Yeah, I agree. But since we're talking about, best score and best soundtrack, why don't we take, with the end of the year coming up, why don't we take a look at, some potential award winners, some who we think might take like best picture, best actor, things like that, with the Oscars coming up. So we could start. I suppose we can start with best picture. Do you guys have any thoughts on what might come home? What might come home with best picture?
Well, I have a list of the Golden Globe nominees. Obviously, we don't know the Academy nominees yet, but in case anyone was curious, for the Golden Globes, the nominees for best drama are Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, If Beale Street Could Talk, and A Star Is Born. And then they also have another category for musical or comedy, and for that they have nominated Crazy Rich Asians, The Favorite, Green Book, Mary Poppins Returns, and Vice. So I think we would probably see a similar lineup in the Academy, maybe with a few differences, a few additions. But
was in the dramas, was First Man part of the Golden Globe list?
It was not.
Okay, I think that might get put into the noms, the Ryan Gosling Neil Armstrong movie.
Yeah, I never saw that one,
but yeah,
I did want to.
Yeah. I haven't seen a lot of those movies. To be totally honest, I wanted to see A Star Is Born, and I really wanted to see Black Klansman, but I never got out to see it.
I saw that one,
so I don't really have.
It's very strange. It's good. It's a good movie, but it's sort of a strange viewing experience. It's like going in, I wasn't sure what to expect. It's sort of a weird mix of comedy and drama. Like, it's really, I don't know. It sort of, it can't decide whether or not it wants to take itself seriously or act as sort of this humorous lens to view the country today.
Okay, interesting. Well, just kind of looking over and thinking about, I mean, if the Academy is so weird on how it picks its best picture, I think, that, I mean, we can be fairly certain that it's not going to be a comedy, because it's never comedy, and it's probably not going to be an action movie, right? Basically, if you're not a drama, you're not winning best picture with the Oscars.
Pretty much.
So I guess my gut reaction is probably A Star Is Born, just because I also think the Academy really likes Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I still didn't get out to see A Star Is Born. I wanted to, but a lot of my friends did, and a lot of them went out to see it. And I don't know if just because most of my friends are music and theater people, but they were giving this movie really high praise. So, but just in reviews in general, it's gotten really really good. Ratings, really high praise from a lot of people. Having Lady Gaga as the lead, I've heard that she did just a fantastic job. So, out of the movies that we were talking for Golden Globes, I would think that would probably take it.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's A Star's Born to lose. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if Bohemian Rhapsody made a push. But of these other names that I'm seeing, yeah, there aren't really a whole lot that stand out to me that I think could really stand up to A Star Is Born in the eyes of the Academy. Like, there's no way Black Panther is going to be nominated. There's no way
Nope,
something
not a
like
superhero movie.
The Spider Verse is going to be nominated, or the Green Book is interesting. I've heard mixed things about it. I still need to go see it, but if that
Same.
movie turns out to be as good as I think it could be, that could make a push as well. Same with Vice. Um, but yeah, for now, I would probably stick with A Star Is Born to take it.
Yeah. But speaking of uh, Bohemian Rhapsody, I do think Rami Malek,
I think it's Raimi.
Rami Malek, um, who portrayed Freddie Mercury in the movie. I think he would be my front runner. I think to win Best Actor at this year's Oscars. I I thought he did just a absolutely magnificent job in that movie. Um, like it felt real. Like it felt like a genuine. I'm trying to think of the right words. It felt like a genuine attempt to really embody Freddie Mercury. Like it didn't feel like he was just like an actor who was just like played to pay a role. It felt like he was like, you know, really felt like he was doing his best to just be like a new embodiment kind of thing for Freddie and get like a good picture and a good telling of Freddie's story on screen. I thought Rami, where we decided to say it, did a fantastic job.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Um, but I kind of want to talk a little bit about that's sort of our predictions on what we think will be the award winners. But I do want to talk about what like we personally think are the best movies of 2018 and what our personal favorites are.
Oh, okay. Well, that's easy for me. That's Infinity War. So
I hate to have all of us say the same thing, but I think I would probably agree with you.
Yeah, that's 3 across the board.
Yeah, Infinity War it did such a good job of getting you excited for Endgame, and I think just as it stands, I think it's fine. Like it's a cliffhanger movie designed to bring you back for the second part, but I think it stands by itself. It's good enough that you can just pop it in and watch it and be satisfied with what you see.
And I mean, it's a movie that fans have been waiting literally 10 years for.
Yeah.
With all of these movies that we love in the MCU, they're all leading up to this movie. And it's such a brilliant move on Marvel's part to split this up into 2 parts, because we get the first part and we're so excited for it, and then we're left with this massive cliffhanger, and then we've got to have Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel to tide us over to the next one, which is going to be the epic finale, which we will have waited 11 years for. So Infinity War is just such a fantastic piece of art, in terms of acting, the huge cast, the music was great, the action was great, the animation was great, just everything about it was, top notch.
Yeah. And to that point, I think one of the main reasons that a movie like Infinity War, we I think know pretty certainly that is not going to be nominated for an Academy Award or anything like that, is because there was so much groundwork put into that movie that the casual viewer, like if you haven't seen all of the 18, 19, or however many Marvel movies were made before this, going into it, you're not going to fully appreciate everything that went into Infinity War.
Yeah, absolutely. That was like my parents went to go see Infinity War, and that was like my mom's biggest complaint was that she didn't know who any of these characters were because she hadn't been invested in the MCU. So that was one thing I thought Infinity War did was one, and I think it was right. They just assumed that if you're watching this movie, you're caught up and you know who these characters are. There's no need for background information on any of them. That you've watched everything and none of these characters like, oh, who's that? What are his motivations, kind of thing. And I thought, given how many heroes that they had, and movies have a limited time frame. The movie, I think ran close to like 2.5 hours. Was its runtime 149 minutes?
Yeah, it's quite long.
So yeah, about 2.5 hours. But I thought it still did a good job of giving all of these established heroes like the necessary screen time, so it didn't feel like the movies that they had were wasted. Right? So, like, you felt like the Guardians all had like the right amount of screen time. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark obviously needs the most screen time because he's Robert Downey Jr. But it didn't feel forced. Like, it all felt like they were in the movie the correct amount of time given what we know about them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree.
I think Black Panther and Wakanda were shortchanged just a little bit in terms of screen time compared to what I was expecting. But yeah, for the most part, I agree with you. I do also, while we're on the topic of 2018 movies, want to shout out to a couple others that I really enjoyed that I think deserve mentioning. A Quiet Place, which I completely forgot came out in 2018 because this has been such a long year. But I very much enjoyed The Quiet Place. Incredibles 2 was another that I loved. Enjoyed Bohemian Rhapsody, like we talked about earlier. And of course, Into the Spider-Verse. I think all of those would constitute my favorite movies of 2018. Maybe even the new Mission Impossible. That was another one that I highly enjoyed.
Deadpool 2, I would say, is also one of my favorite comedies of this year as well.
One for me that actually wasn't a theater release, it was a Netflix original, was The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. I don't know if you guys watched that, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah, so it's a Netflix original. It's basically like 6 short films put together, directed by the Coen brothers, and it's enjoyable. It's really fun. If I recall correctly, none of the 6 stories have what will be considered a happy ending. Spoiler alert. But it's good. It's got some good actors in it. James Franco's in it. Liam Neeson's in it. Those are the 2 that I immediately recognized. But it's a good time. I'm sure you've seen one of the memes that came out of it. In one of the movies, the main character of that particular film is about to be hanged, and there's like 2 other guys with him who are like freaking out, and he says, "First time?" ? Because because he was going to be hanged earlier in that film. So, and it was, I think it became like an EA Games meme after Blizzard's fiasco with their mobile game release.
Well, I have not seen that meme, but I don't want to leave you hanging here on this joke, so I'll give you a chuckle.
Okay. Well, you can't win them all. Apparently, I spend more time on the internet than Adam.
It's possible.
Because Adam is a responsible adult.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah.
Adam adults better than I do. We'll give him that. But yeah, so if you have time, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs is is a good watch.
I will look into it.
But beyond that, I honestly did enjoy Venom.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Tom Hardy in Venom. The rest of it, it was fine. It was a superhero movie, but I really did enjoy Tom Hardy.
Yeah, I think
and his portrayal of Venom.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Venom was not the greatest movie, but Tom Hardy gave one of my favorite performances of the year in that movie. His acting is just so spot on, and he portrays the character incredibly well. So, in a movie where the writing is kind of lacking and acting from the other characters are just a little subpar, but, you know, Tom Hardy is just so great that he deserves that shout out.
He sure does. I agree completely. Any other movies
The Hate You Give
that stick out? You want to give?
One that I forgot to mention that I do want to throw out there.
What was that?
The Hate You Give, based on a book.
No, I didn't see that one. I don't even remember hearing about it.
It didn't get a whole lot of marketing, at least not as much as it should have gotten. But yeah, based on the award-winning book by Angie Thomas, it's about a young black girl whose best friend is shot by the police.
Oh.
I mean, it's about what you would expect in that regard, but very powerful nonetheless, and worth a watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That was like 30
that
minutes
was
on
solid
movies.
30 minutes on movies. So, we will move on. Advertisers, if you're listening, here's another great spot for a segue. So pay me and Adam money, and we'll talk about your brand. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. All right. So moving on to video games, another topic that our dear guest Joshua knows about. So I know that Josh, you have a Nintendo Switch, correct?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. And so I have sampled Smash Ultimate. And so, what are your guys' initial thoughts on the newest installment into the Super Smash series?
It is definitely the best Smash Bros. Game that we've seen yet. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about it. It is literally the ultimate Super Smash Bros. Game. It has every single character that we've seen from the franchise on a brand new console that is portable. You know, you can play Smash Bros. With your friends, you know, anywhere that you want. It has almost every stage from every game, you know, a ridiculous amount of stages. The whole new World of Light mode is a lot of fun, very challenging. Old fans of the series are really going to love it, and Nintendo fans are going to love it as well for the new Spirit system that incorporates, you know, so many more characters from the massive world of Nintendo. You know, you got Fire Emblem characters that aren't normally playable. You got lots of different Pokemon and characters from the Mario universe. You know, so it's just so expansive. It really has everything. The multiplayer mode I haven't tried out a whole lot, but you know, the Wii U version of Super Smash Bros. Got the multiplayer mode right, so I'm sure the Switch version has got it right too. So, you know, I would definitely say it is the best multiplayer game of the year. It's a game that we've all been waiting for a long time, and it did not disappoint. So, yeah, definitely the best Smash Bros. Game that we've ever seen.
Yeah, Adam?
I mean, I'm a Melee guy. I've always been a Melee guy. That was my first Smash Bros. Game, my first love. But I might want to cheat on my love with this game. It's very good. It's beautiful. Yeah. The characters. Oh, yeah. I love how the roster. Rip Waluigi. I think the Spirits was a really cool idea. The trophy characters item I think is a really cool idea, and I'm glad they incorporated that. Yeah, I mean, it's just everything that we've come to know and love from Smash Bros. Plus new things that they pretty much nail.
Yeah. I mean, I only played a couple rounds of it, but I definitely agree that it is a gorgeous looking game. It's so it's so vibrant. It's bright and vibrant, and just like it's nice to look at. Like just playing it, it just looks good. Like while even if you're just watching, you're like, this is a good looking game.
Nintendo pay us.
Yeah.
There's
It's
also just
an absolutely gigantic roster, which is it's like over 70 characters, and when they tack on DLCs, it's gonna be like over 80. I mean, there's gonna be a character for everybody. It's so awesome, and I think what I like most about it is that they up the speed of the combat to feel, I think, a bit more like Melee. So like Brawl and 4 were kind of slowed down a little bit, but now it's got that kind of more frantic pace back behind it.
Yeah, I was going to mention that there are just so many quality of life changes that were made in Smash Ultimate. From, like you say, Kevin, the speeding up of the combat, the air dodges that we're now getting to help, improve, some of those more competitive players. We have, the brand new close-up slow-mo final smashes. If you have two characters left on the field and you get that final satisfying KO, you get your own little slow motion cutscene for it. I love the fact that they've put the character selection screen last, and they switched around the stage selection. That way you can pick your stage and then, pick a character that you think would work best for that stage. If you're playing if you're playing something like Battlefield, something that's a much smaller stage, you're probably not going to want to play, like Ness or someone with lots of heavy projectile attacks and that sort of thing. So I just really appreciate how, Nintendo really goes out of their way to improve the experience for their gamers, and it really shows in Smash Ultimate.
Yeah, absolutely. I did like it's like when you get the smash attacks, not the smash ball, just like the heavy attacks, like when you charge up your normal attack, like you'll get that freeze frame at the end. I just think that's like a nice little touch at the end. I did notice while playing that it is you have better recovery now. Like you have to like have high damage before you really get just like blasted out of the arena. Because I was juggling the guy I was playing. I just kept running back and kicking him, and he just wouldn't leave. Like he just kept floating back over. It was actually kind of frustrating at that point. Eventually, I got him.
Was he playing with Villager? Because oh my god, I hate the Villager.
Why do you hate the Villager?
Well, you just can't kill him. He can just float for 30 miles and then ride his missile all the way back. Oh my god.
Adam got wrecked by Villager last night.
Okay, no, I did not get wrecked.
Yeah. Well, we were doing random. We were doing random characters when I was playing, and I got Wario the first time I did it, and then Villager the second time, and those are two of my least favorite characters to play as. And I messed up, so it wasn't my system, but while I had Wario, I won the fight, but we had like a mystery, like a character unlock opportunity, and it was Luigi, and I'm so bad with Wario that I lost, so we missed that chance to unlock Luigi. I felt really bad about it, but I was like, he'll get over it.
Another chance.
Well, and there's always the random encounter option, or the challenger approaches option, that you can go back and reface anybody that you lost to during that random encounter. So no worries, you can always go back and unlock him at a later time.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. He was worried about it. So yeah, Smash Ultimate is fantastic. I hope to be able to afford a Switch at some point in the near future, so I can play that, and also let's go Pokemon, because it's Pokemon and I'm a giant nerd and I have to play it. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I think I'm caving as well, and go ahead and playing it, because I wasn't gonna play it originally because I'm one of those people that are like, I want my Gen 8 on Switch, and we know it's coming, and Nintendo is just stalling with Pokemon Let's Go and trying to rope in
Make more
people
money.
who, maybe were fans of Pokemon Go, but not necessarily the actual Pokemon franchise. But, like you said, Kevin, I'm also a huge nerd, and I'm a diehard Pokemon fan, so I'm still gonna play it.
So there we are. Sticking with games, since we talked about the best movies of 2018, let's talk about the best video games of 2018. So on our little rundown sheet, we had Adam put up 4 potentials that immediately came to his mind while he was coming up with today's rundown. And I did notice that 2 of the 4 are PS4 exclusives.
Yeah, so, Sony has been killing it recently.
I think that says something. That one, the PlayStation 4 I think is a better machine, better for gaming than the Xbox One, and clearly, I mean, Sony's putting out bangers, and Microsoft, I don't even know what they have. Fortnite. So
Halo.
I mean, you have God of War and Spider-Man on PS4, and you get Fortnite on Xbox. So what do you guys think? What do you think the best game of 2018 is?
I mean, the 4 that I included that I think deserve to be in the discussion are Red Dead Redemption 2, which we have talked a lot about on this podcast.
We sure have.
God of War.
But you finally finished.
I did finally finish. God of War, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and Spider-Man.
And so which of those 4 are you picking there, guy?
Of those 4, I don't know. I'm torn. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say first before I announce my decision.
All right,
they're very close.
Joshua, you are the guest.
Yeah, all right, here's what I'll say. Of those 4, I have played... I've played all 4 of them, not all the way through. I've played a good 75% of Red Dead 2. I haven't finished the story yet. I've played all of God of War.
Another Kelley who takes forever to finish a game.
Yeah, I do. But I've also played probably a good 50 to 60% of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And then I've just done some free play web swinging in Spider-Man to test out the action and the mechanics and the gameplay and everything. So I don't know if this is a biased opinion just because it's the only game that I finished, but I would say that God of War is probably my favorite game of the year. And I think that the fact that that is the only game of, because I have Red Dead 2 and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I have an Xbox One, and I played God of War on Adam's PS4, and I finished that thing in probably 3 or 4 days, because I just played it nonstop. It got me so hooked. The acting, the visuals, the one-shot camera really drew me in. The mechanics, just everything about the game was so beautifully done. And where, Red Dead is visually flawless. It is so realistic. And Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a great game too. It's so massive. There's so many things for you to do. And the combat in it is fantastic, much improved to Assassin's Creed Origins. But I would have to give it to God of War just for being overall, I think, the most cinematic experience, the most immersive experience. You really relate to Kratos and his son Atreus. And the fact that it's just, a one-shot camera for the entire game, it just makes you want to keep going and keep going. Because there's no loading screens, and you are just going through this beautiful, more linear world, which I was surprised that I actually really liked. And an age where open world games are so prominent, especially in single player experiences. So to have this open world, but is still very linear, there is still a very clear path that the game wants you and forces you to take. I was surprised that I really, really enjoyed that more linear experience for God of War. Um, so yeah, that's my rambling thoughts on God of War. I would give it best game of the year.
Yeah, I mean that's completely fair. Um, I mean you can't really go wrong. I don't think if you chose any of these four as like your favorite game. Um, Unlike the Kellys, I have completed all four of these games through their full stories. I platinum Spider-Man before they released more trophies for it. Um, so of those four, I will give actually a quick special shout out to South Park Fractured Butthole.
Yes,
Because I just think South Park Digital does such a fantastic job of capturing the essence of the South Park universe in their games. Um, so quick shout out there, and plus having Morgan Freeman in it is pretty great. Um,
but don't fight him.
but yeah, he's super hard. But of those four, so between Red Dead, God of War, Odyssey, and Spider-Man, I think the reason I wouldn't say God of War is almost the exact same reason that Josh picked God of War, is that it is pretty linear. There's you don't get like multiple ways to like get through the story or multiple ways to kind of go through each mission, if that makes sense. Like it's like kind of like this is what's happening and this is where you're going and this is basically how you're gonna do it. I mean, it's a puzzler with really good combat, right? So the Leviathan axe is really fun to use. Bringing back the Blades of Chaos was, I thought, incredibly hype. And you know the occasional the scuffles with Balder were awesome. So like starting out and like, oh, here you're fighting a god who literally can't die, and no matter how much you beat him up, he's just gonna stand back up. Oh, you hit him with a tree, doesn't matter. But it was also short. It felt short to me, right? Like I was invested in it, and then it was like over, and it told a fantastic story, and I loved the story that it told, but I wanted more, if that makes sense. And so I would go with Red Dead as probably the best game of 2018 because it's just as immersive. I think the story it tells is just as good, if not even better than God of War. And plus, I'm a big fan of the cover type shooters, so that you get like that Rockstar puts out that you get with like Uncharted. So those cover based shooters I think are really fun to play from the third person perspective. And plus, just the amount of detail that Rockstar put into this game, it's mind boggling. So I'm playing through it a second time, and there's just so much that you just didn't see the first time through. And the music in Red Dead Redemption 2 is incredible. So particularly when at the end of chapter 5, when you're riding back to Shady Belle after returning from Guarma, that song that plays, like you just
yeah, I'm still in chapter 4.
You just put it in cinematic mode.
You just got
okay.
No, you just got to Guarma, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's not much of a spoiler.
Okay. Well, when you return, yeah. By the way, you're not staying in Guarma, but when you return and you're on your horse, there's no enemies around. Like it's just a ride back to Shady Belle, and you just put it in cinematic mode, and it's just incredible.
Yeah, I'll make sure to listen more.
The song that they chose is just, oh my goodness. Oh, you don't have to listen more intently. It'll be the only thing on your mind. Oh, I adore it, and just the whole story that gets told with how it sets up the first Red Dead Redemption, and just like seeing how these characters got to where they are, it's incredible. And Arthur Morgan is just a fantastic character. Although I was thinking about it, and I was going to ask you both, but I guess Josh hasn't finished it, so he doesn't have a complete view. But who your favorite character from Red Dead Redemption 2 was or is? Because there's some magnificent characters. Adam, I will ask you, who's your favorite character in Red Dead Redemption 2?
I mean, is it a cop out to just say Arthur?
It's not a cop out to just say Arthur.
I think he was the most interesting character
because he's incredible.
And that's probably why they made him the protagonist.
Yeah, he should be because he's the main character.
Just to sort of watch his transformation. I think my favorite side quest was where you re-encounter, and this is a minor spoiler, but it's not integral to the main story. So you encounter the family of the preacher who you kill early.
Mrs.
in the
Downs.
game. I can't remember the name of the family to save my life.
Mrs. Downs.
Right, that's right. The Downs. Edith, is that her name?
Yeah.
Something like that.
What was that?
Anyway, you encounter her just in town late in the story, and she is sort of resorted to selling her body because she can no longer has enough to provide for her son. And Arthur, who is solely responsible for the state that their family is in by killing her husband and displacing them from their home. I think you can really just see the conflict behind him with that interaction, and he saves her and his son, and he gives them money, and he tells them to go. Of course, they don't forgive him. Why would they? But it's just small things like that I think show his character development over the course of the story, make him a really interesting character.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, I think Arthur blames himself for their predicament, but I mean, Mr. Downs, he died of tuberculosis, so I mean, it wasn't really Arthur's fault. He didn't shoot him in the head or anything.
I may have missed that. I thought he died because Arthur beat him to the point where he couldn't recover.
No, he had TB.
Okay. I mean, still.
Yeah, you could tell that he was already. I think he tells you that he's sick and dying when you first show up. I mean, punching him repeatedly doesn't help. But I think it's more Arthur blames himself for their predicament, not that it actually is Arthur's fault. And if anything, it's Leopold Strauss's fault. He's the one that lent him money and shouldn't have. This is how we get The Big Short.
That's fair.
Leads to a stock market crash. But I would say that my favorite character is Charles Smith.
That's
I think he's just a super interesting character, and he's just a really fun character to have riding with you. And I won't say anything because I think he becomes excellent in chapter 6 and onwards is where he becomes really, really good. So I won't say anything more because this is all Josh's fault, but Charles Smith is probably my favorite character. And I really enjoyed the short time that we got with Sean McGuire. He was a fun character to have around.
I have to say, I really love Lenny, and I know he dies because I just finished chapter 4, so he just died.
Yeah, but Lenny was great.
I really loved those missions that Arthur had with Lenny. Getting drunk with Lenny in the bar is still probably my favorite mission that
that's
I've
a
had
fun one
so far in Red Dead.
Yep, for sure. All right, Adam. So now Josh and I have said what our favorite games of 2018 are. So what's yours? Make a decision.
It's interesting that you both chose the games that you did because those were the two that I was going back and forth between in my mind about which one that I wanted to pick. I think it needs to be noted that I have not finished Odyssey yet. I've gotten decently far, but I haven't completed it yet. But I think it's fair to strike that from contention just because it didn't grip me and make me want to finish it like the other games did.
Right. It's easy to put it down.
Easy to pick back up again too for short spans, but yeah, easy to put down. I don't know. I'm very much torn. Here's my thing with Red Dead. I agree with you, Kevin, about all that you said about Red Dead. Obviously, it's a beautiful world and it is massive, and there's so much to do. Um, it seems like sometimes Red Dead can't exactly decide what kind of game it wants to be, whether it wants to be a kind of game like Odyssey, where it's completely open world and you can do whatever you want as long as you complete the objectives along the way, or like God of War, which, like we were saying, is much more linear. Right? There's a very specific path that you need to follow to get to the end of God of War. And I don't think either one of those styles for games is better than or inferior to the other. They're just different styles of games, right? Linear games like God of War and like Uncharted that we were talking about, there's nothing wrong. Those can be fantastic games, just as good as the giant open world games with lots of choices. But it seems like Red Dead, sometimes it really wants to be that open world game with a lot of choices and a lot of options, and sometimes it also feels kind of linear. Like, in order to complete certain quests, you have to do things a certain way. That being said,
Sure.
I still don't know. I mean, you talked about Red Dead score.
You have to make a decision. I'm forcing you to make one.
I think God of War score. You talked about Red Dead score, and I think that God of War score also needs to be mentioned, because I thought it was very well done, very gripping as well. I think the combat mechanics in God of War are some of the best and some of the most fun that I've ever played with in any video game. Kratos' axe is probably my favorite weapon that I've ever played with in a game. And I love the puzzle aspect to God of War. Red Dead, like you said, beautiful game, huge, lots of options. The characters are fantastic. The ending of the game is phenomenal. No spoilers for Josh.
Folks, what you're witnessing right now is an internal dilemma, an existential crisis for Adam.
I'm going to say God of War, purely because I think I liked the succinct nature of its story and the way that it tells its story. And I think that gives it replay value. Maybe not with as many options to play as a different kind of character, like maybe you could do in a more open world game, like Red Dead or Assassins. But I'm very much a story-centric guy. And I think that I would give a very slight edge to God of War in terms of story.
Okay, I mean that's totally fair. I mean, you can't go wrong if you can only play one of these games. You're gonna have a good time regardless of which one you choose. But now I have a follow-up question. Now that you picked God of War, and Josh, I think you can answer this one as well. Now, which game would you rather play? God of War or The Witcher 3?
See, I think Adam and I will both agree here, because we are in agreement that Witcher 3 is both of our favorite game, of all time. It remains at the top of the list, and probably will for a very long time, until, who knows, maybe Elder Scrolls 6 could dethrone. But just in terms of everything about Witcher 3 is perfect. It is a perfect game, and one that he and I are both still going back and replaying, because it has that replay value. So many different options that you can choose for Geralt. So while I would put God of War is definitely in my top 5, and I would say Red Dead 2 is also my top 5, Witcher remains at number 1.
Undefeated, undisputed heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Adam can attest to this. I don't like things that are scary. I don't like scary things. I refuse to play The Last of Us.
I'm gonna keep bugging you until you.
But
play it.
I got over it. I got over it and played the crap out of The Witcher 3. That game is incredible. And the DLCs are even better. Like, the Blood and Wine expansion pack it's so
bigger
good.
Than like 90% of games released by AAA developers nowadays, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's a whole new story.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's so good. So yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I would choose The Witcher 3 over Red Dead as well. So there we are. All right. So we are, holy cow.
Yeah, we got to blaze like an sports section. Josh doesn't know anything about sports, so we'll spend 2 minutes.
Fair enough. All right. So sports. With the NFL season winding down, week 16, one more week after this. Chargers had a big loss to the Ravens. Just now, from when we're recording, the Bears beat the 49ers, which I think solidifies them at the top of the NFC North. With the playoffs coming up, we'll just go right to Adam's question. Which potential wild card team should the favorites be most afraid of?
And
I guess you kind of have to look at who the potential wild cards are. I think it really, I guess if they're in the wild card, the other team gets the home field, because I think the Saints, if the Saints don't have home field all the way through, they're not making it to the Super Bowl, is my opinion. If the Saints have to play on the road, they're going to lose in the playoffs. But beyond that, I mean, the Bears are really good regardless of where they're playing. That defense is so disgustingly nasty that I don't think right now they really have to be afraid of anyone. I mean, when you're able to shut down the Rams so definitively, I don't think the Bears have to be afraid of anyone. The Rams have a lot of injuries, so they are in a precarious position, and the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I mean, they're gonna put up numbers basically regardless of who you are. So if you can keep pace, you can win. But if you can't, well, tough, because they're gonna score on you no matter what.
So the reason I asked this question was because of that Baltimore win over, I almost said the San Diego Chargers, the LA Chargers. Because just looking at that game and looking at the game between the Ravens and the Chiefs a few weeks ago, which Kansas City barely eked out a win in overtime, the Ravens look like a scary team right now. And if they end up in the playoffs, which is very likely that they will, I think that they're going to be a tough out for any of the other teams in the AFC. I would not be surprised if Baltimore makes a deep run into the playoffs. So that's why I asked that question. And obviously, the Chargers being right now the other wildcard team in the AFC, those are two teams that could compete with anybody. The NFC, I think maybe the wild card is not quite as strong. I think sitting in right now is Seattle and Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. And a lot for Seattle rides on their game with Kansas City tonight. I need to go back and check with the Vikings. Did the Vikings win this week, or have they played yet? They did. They beat Detroit.
I don't think they've played. Oh, let's see. I'm literally on the NFL's website and I couldn't find it. Yeah, 27-9.
So yeah, I think of all the potential wildcard teams, I think Baltimore has. I would give them the biggest chance of making a deep run.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair, since I mean, the Chargers weren't able to put them down.
That defense
so
is insane.
I mean, it definitely gives the Ravens a lot of momentum going in. But right now they have a tough matchup if they end up pulling against the Texans. That will be. Those are two really, really hot teams, so we'll see how that goes.
I know the Texans just lost today. The Eagles are another team out of the NFC that if they make the playoffs, I think the defending champs, they're gonna, with Nick Foles at the helm, they're gonna give people fits.
Yeah, I can't figure out Nick Foles. Is he good?
Who knows? The Eagles really seem to
It
be
makes
better with
no
him,
sense.
I don't know. It's weird because I think Carson Wentz is undoubtedly the more talented quarterback, but it seems like the Eagles just play better as a team with Foles taking the lead. I don't know what exactly about him makes it. Maybe it's the play calling. Maybe it's because Doug Peterson has less confidence in Nick Foles than he does Carson Wentz, and so he specifically game plans around that to cover up for his weaknesses. I'm not sure, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean every year it feels like Nick Foles puts up like 3 or 4 like bonkers games. Then he comes back down. He's a better version of Ryan Fitzpatrick.
That's a very good comparison.
Is really what he is. With I think more capabilities to actually lead a team if he had to. But I just can't figure it out with some of these backups. So if the Eagles can sneak in, they will probably be a tough out. But it looks like if they do sneak in, they would end up facing off against the Bears. And to be totally honest, I really like the Bears' chances of making a really good push into the playoffs, just because that defense is just unreal.
Travels.
I mean,
the playoffs.
Yeah. So we'll see. I hope the Rams lose. If the Rams lose next weekend, that would be huge, because then if the Bears pull out the win, then they can get that first round bye. Yeah, they're a game back. So I guess 11-4 and 12-3 right now. So here's hoping. It would be really nice, especially because if they end up with the same record, Bears have that tiebreaker over them, so they would get that bump up. So we actually should have a pretty exciting Week 17, because now while divisional champions have been set, the seedings are still up in the air, so they can go anywhere. Like Saints have to win if they want home field, if they want to guarantee home field advantage through the playoffs. Rams have, like, all the top teams, they still have to win if they want to keep good spots in the playoffs. So it should be fun playoffs, and even a relatively exciting Week 17, which sometimes isn't. So I'm looking forward to it. And speaking of football, this will be the last thing we talk about, because we've been going for a while now. The Cheez-It Bowl is in just a few days. TCU Horned Frogs managed to pull what looked like a disastrous season and turn it into a bowl eligible season. So have you seen the Cheez-It Bowl patches? They are gigantic.
And I really want one.
If you didn't know, Cheez-It is the sponsor for this bowl game.
Really?
And they make sure you know it. Yeah. Those are some big patches. But so I guess the first question, I don't know if this has been like confirmed or anything. Do we know who will be leading the Frogs at quarterback in this game? Is it going to be Michael Collins?
I assume so. I mean, I have no reason to believe that it won't be Collins.
Right. I didn't know how severe his injury was at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, if he's not good to go, I don't even know who the next man up would be. Like, is Rodgers?
It would be Grayson.
What's that?
Yeah, Grayson Muhlstein.
Right,
The Mule. He led us to victory.
17 seasons.
I know. He's our version of Perry Ellis, or whatever that guy's name from Kansas was.
Okay, so.
And Ty Slanina. Remember him? He was here for like 18 years.
Because he was always hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're playing Cal, and I'm gonna be real with you. I know absolutely nothing about Cal.
They're very much like us.
I think that's where Aaron Rodgers went to school, right? Isn't that where he did school?
And Jared Goff.
Yeah, that's all I know about them. Oh, all right. So they have a good history of quarterbacks every 8 years or so.
Well, I know that this season they're very much like us. They're a mediocre at best offense, complemented by a good defense, and can compete against good teams, but will also lose to bad teams that they shouldn't lose to. So TCU in a nutshell.
Right.
And so I envision a very low-scoring defensive battle in this game. If we want to do score predictions, mine is 17-14 Frogs with at least one defensive touchdown.
Okay. I'm gonna go a little bit higher, and I'm gonna say, we'll say 24-13 Frogs, and I think Jalen scores 3 times. Because Jalen Rager is a cheat code, and he got absolutely ripped off by not being put into the all Big 12 teams. Like, I get, like, OU's wide receivers are good, but, I mean, Jalen Rager
a much better quarterback throwing to them.
Incredible. So, I think Jalen scores 3 times in this game, and 1 for at least 50-plus yards. With the Frogs winning, because anytime Gary Patterson has a long time to prepare for a team, you got to think they're going to get shut down, just because he's a defensive genius. And since Cal does not have the Heisman winner, or a Heisman contender, I like our chances.
Fair enough.
All right. So that was a quick rundown of sports. I think we did our sports in about 10 minutes there. Not even, maybe 8 minutes. Yeah, well, when our guests have such thorough knowledge of sports. No offense, Joshua.
None taken.
Good. So yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. That's the end of our show. Josh, thanks so much for being on with us. When's your opera? When does that start? When does that run?
March 1st through 3rd. It's the first weekend of March.
All right, March 1st through 3rd. So if anyone is in town that's listening to this, March 1st through 3rd, Oklahoma City University. Go see Joshua Kelley sing in English about Italian stuff. So yeah, Adam, shout outs.
Josh, B-Box, take us out.
Oh God! All right, here we go.
Brittany Snow, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on.